How are you guys doing? Today is Sunday, September 19th, 2021. I'm James Sims, and for this episode of The Elite, I'm going to do an elite individual profile on Trae Young. The elite point guard for the Atlanta Hawks turns 23 today, and my intention with this profile is, of course, to shed light on his accomplishments, his achievements, and what he's been able to accomplish as a 6'1", 180-pound point guard in the NBA amongst the best basketball players that this world has to offer. This is a guy that's, he was in my high school class, so I've been following him since high school. And considering he's been a player that many people have overlooked for the simple fact, pun intended, because he's so small, people just overlook the fact that he was skilled enough to become one of the best players on potentially a championship team in the NBA at 6'1", 180 pounds. But of course, he's incredibly skilled. He has a ridiculous basketball IQ, ridiculous vision, and amazing passing skills, not to mention that he can shoot from as far back as the logo. He actually has the most NBA field goals made from logo range in the last 25 years, and he's been in the league for 3 years. That should be a little bit of insight into just what his impact could be, and we can even see what he's doing to the current NBA right now. So without further ado, I'm just going to get into the background of what makes Trae Young and kind of draw the line from the moment where he stepped foot into the limelight to where he is now. He's originally from Lubbock, Texas, and he would end up going to play basketball at the University of Oklahoma. And he would go to play there in 2017-18 under Lon Kruger. Lon Kruger isn't the coach at Oklahoma anymore, but he was when Trae Young was there. And Trae Young, as a one-and-done, would have one of the most impressive one-and-done seasons that you've ever seen from a college basketball player, even though you don't hear from it a lot. In the 32 games he played for Oklahoma, he started all 32 of them. First off, he would help Oklahoma make it to the tournament with the team that they had. They finished with an 18-14 record. They would end up getting bounced in the first round of the playoffs. And in that season, Trae Young, in the 35 minutes he played, he averaged 27.4 points per game in college. He would lead college basketball, every single player, all of them. He would go on to, he would lead the league in scoring while shooting 42% from the field. He shot 36% from three while taking 10 threes a game, which is amazing for college basketball. He will go on to shoot 86% from the free throw line, taking about 8.5 free throws a game, which is still very impressive considering it's college basketball. He would do so while averaging 3.9 rebounds. He averaged 8.7 assists per game. So he would lead all of college basketball, or at least all of the Power 5 D1 schools, in points and assists, which doesn't happen in true freshmen virtually ever. And he would go on to finish with 1.7 steals per game. And at the end of his season, he would establish himself as a good enough prospect to be taken with the number 5 overall pick in the NBA draft. And of course, going here, this is where his career is automatically tied with Luka Doncic, because Luka Doncic was the 3rd overall pick. He was initially drafted by the Atlanta Hawks, but the Hawks would end up trading the rights for Luka Doncic for Trae Young in their next year first-round pick. That would eventually end up being Cam Reddish as well. So Luka Doncic ended up going to the Mavericks on draft day, and Trae Young, originally drafted by the Dallas Mavericks, would get traded to the Atlanta Hawks on draft day. And surprisingly, they both have been pretty phenomenal since they've been drafted to their respective teams. And Trae Young has only been on the Hawks since. And let's not forget that before then, he was the NCAA season scoring leader, the season assist leader, the Big 12 freshman of the year, and of course he made first team All Big 12, and he was a consensus first team All-American before even making it to the Hawks in the first place. In his very first season in Atlanta, of course, he would have a little bit of a rough patch, but eventually get it together, and you won't believe, I still think it's worth pulling up a lot of the stuff of what people were saying about Trae Young in the first month or two before he actually got incredibly good. In his age 20 season, his rookie season in 2018-19, he would start all 81 of the games he played for an Atlanta Hawks team that finished with a 29-53 record. That would be the 4th worst record in all of the Eastern Conference. In that season, he would go on to average 19.1 points per game. As a rookie, by the way, at 6'1", where the average NBA player is 6'7", He would go on to shoot 42% from the field, 32% from three, and 83% from the foul line. He shot 3.7%, or he would average 3.7 rebounds a game. He averaged 8.1 assists per game as a rookie alongside his 19 points. I remember seeing a stat. It was like not many rookies have averaged 19 and 8, just straight up. But the fact that he was able to do that would put him sort of in a class, would put him in a special class, like better than your average 6'1" basketball player, definitely by this point. Following his 2018-19 season, in his second season in basketball, in his age 21 season in 2019-2020, he would start all 60 of the games he played for an Atlanta Hawks team that would finish with a 20-47 record in a shortened season that wouldn't even allow them to play in the bubble during COVID because they hadn't even qualified for the playoffs. Or they'd already been eliminated by then. But in his second season playing, Trae Young was named to the All-Star team, while he would go on to average 35 minutes for the Atlanta Hawks this year. He will go on to average 29.6 points per game. To date, that's the most points per game he's ever averaged in a season in the NBA. While doing this, he was shooting 43.7% from the field, so averaging 30 at 21 years old while shooting 44% from the field is incredible. He shot 36% from three, which is the highest percentage from three he's ever shot in his career, while shooting 9.5 threes a game. That's a high volume amount of threes to be making at least 36% of them. He will go on to shoot 86% from the line as well, which was a big tick up from his free throw percentage his rookie year by about 3 points. He would go on to average 4.3 rebounds a game, along with his 29.6 points. He averaged 9.3 assists. This would be the first time in Trae Young's career he averaged at least 25 points per game and 9 assists per game. Not many point guards, not many people can do that. He averaged over a steal per game, and at the conclusion of the season, the Hawks would not make the playoffs, but many people were aware of the type of talent that Trae Young was. This would lead into his third season, which I believe was the season in which Trae Young proved himself. In his age 22 season, in this most recent 2021 season that was impacted by COVID, in the sense where you had all the testing and they had to make sure that, or they were running off of a short off season from the previous season, so that saw a lot of injuries happen. But in his age 22 season, he would start all 63 games he would play in a season where the Atlanta Hawks would finish with a 41-31 record. They would finish with the 5th best record in the East. They would make the playoffs for the first time since 2016-2017, which would be a couple of years before the Hawks ended up drafting Trae Young in the first place. In this season itself, Trae Young would go on to average 25.3 points per game while shooting 44% from the field. He shot 34% from three and 88.6% from the foul line. That would, at least to date, that's the highest he shot from the free throw line in a season. He would go on to average 3.9 rebounds, which is roughly what he was doing before. He averaged 9.4 assists, which was a tick higher than what he did before. But in his third season in the NFL, or in the NBA, Trae Young would not make the All-Star game. He was snubbed. Even when the All-Star game was in Atlanta, and I think Trae most definitely took it personally, he led the Atlanta Hawks to the playoffs, where he would lead the Hawks to what would be a historic run, which very well could be the precedent for something special. In the first round, they would end up beating the Knicks 4-1. I was there for the first home game where they won Game 3, where the series was tied at 1, and Trae Young was phenomenal that game. And then the second round, they would end up beating the first seed Philadelphia 76ers, something that nobody expected the Atlanta Hawks to do going into this series. And then they would end up losing in the conference finals to the eventual 2021 champs, Milwaukee Bucks, in 6. Just as many games as the Phoenix Suns took them to. And Trae Young and there were no All-Stars on that team. Trae Young was the only player on that team that averaged at least 20 points per game. And I mean, at the same time, he was able to get everybody involved. This Atlanta Hawks team is incredibly young, and it works around him. And him losing the Hawks losing in the Eastern Conference Finals is definitely going to put a lot of teams on edge coming into this season, considering a lot of teams are already built for championships now, and the Hawks are built for future success. But a lot of that is built, or it's centered around the fact that Trae Young is one of the most skilled 6'1" guards that I have ever seen play the game, and I would argue he's the most. And the fact that he's been able to do what he's been able to do up until now, and now he's turning 23, I think that Trae Young, along with Luka Doncic, Jason Tatum, some of the other, and like Devin Booker, a lot of the guys that are under 24, once those guys are the best players in the league is going to be, it's really going to be something, and I can't wait to see what happens then. But as of right now, I kind of enjoy focusing on the now and looking at the type of player that Trae Young is. But with that said, he's one of the reasons I kind of like doing these profiles on young players, because it's like, talking about young players like this, your imagination lights up when thinking about their possibilities. At the same time, even if you were to level out at this skill level and consistently put up what he's been putting up this season, he could still put up one of the best NBA careers of all time. And that's just how good he is in that 180-pound frame. But with that said, that's all I need to say. I want to thank the basketball reference websites, along with the NBA, and of course the Wikipedia pages that I use to pull up the Oklahoma basketball season, the Atlanta Hawks seasons, and of course just everything else that I needed in between. I want to thank everybody for listening for all 11 minutes of these pieces. Of course, going off of 11, Trae Young is wearing number 11 for the Atlanta Hawks, if you ever got a chance to watch him. And with that said, I want to just take the time to understand like how many players, like how tough it is to not only make it to the NBA, to do what he did in college, that no one has ever done ever. Just the fact that he's able to lead the Atlanta Hawks to the Eastern Conference playoffs at that size with such ease. It's a matter of time before he lights the league and the world afire with his basketball skills. Thanks once again for listening to my piece. I hope all is well. And once all of today's exhibitions and matchups are done, I will come back tomorrow on Monday, September 20th for another episode of The Elite. So until then, thanks for listening to my piece. I hope all is well, and I'll catch you with another episode after this, or with another episode tomorrow after this. Peace out.